Hello, I'm Willie.
Welcome, I'm Hilly.
Yeah. So here we go. So we're going to be talking about AI and photography. Together, we've been doing photography for about 9 years as a husband and wife team. And, we've always both been computer nerds and been kind of following the trend of AI since the beginning and trying to figure out ways to incorporate it with our photography. So we're going to be going over some workflow and just a little bit of a portfolio at the end as well. So if you want to, so our approach in some ways is to be kind of tool agnostic. We will use whatever tool is necessary. We don't play favorites. Originally, we started off using DALL-E 2, and then Midjourney started happening, and we started using that. And then, of course, Stable Diffusion came out, and we started using that. And then Adobe's Firefly built into Photoshop. So ever since then, we've been using everything we can to kind of get the best results, including mixing the photography in. And Photoshop has been a big part of kind of like the centerpiece. Since we're photographers, it sort of just makes sense to use that as the primary way of mixing everything. So, originally I'm from Idaho, but we both moved here to the Bay Area about 2 years ago. And, we've been trying to kick off our photography, videography business here. And originally I was actually a drummer, and that's how we met. She was filming local bands in the area. And then, we started doing this together. And if you want to.
So I was born in Rome, Italy. So sorry for my accent. And I have 20 years of experience about photography, videography. I was director assistant for a big movie here in San Francisco. And then I have my degree in business and another one in cinema studies. And I started with AI because I was scared. And I was scared about my creativity, my job. We were talking together a lot about what we are doing now. And the process was very painful, but I really feel more confident right now that we have a workflow and why we should be really happy with the AI. The AI, it's just a tool. It's like the camera when come out for the first time. And everyone was thinking, painting still there. And our creativity, our ideas are there. And nobody can hack our brain. So what I would like to see is exactly what I did today with these AI images, that we can be creative how much we want, and there is someone else, AI, that do our jobs. And I know that this is my idea, I take all the responsibility about, but really we don't need to be scared what I'm doing, because we are not our jobs. We are not what we are doing for living. We are more. So this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we both agree that, for now at least, that AI plus an artist is still better than just AI by itself. A prompt can get you so far, but if you have a great idea and you work on it, that's sort of what we're going to show you, that you can take something, your idea, and then make it even better with a little bit of work. And to quote 2 Minute Papers, if you ever watch that, what a time to be alive, because you can do so much more now because AI can help us. So, and there's been, let me go to the next page here. There's been a lot of people asking us oh, how are you going to make money, you know, or how do you make money? And so far we haven't made a lot specifically with AI, but, you know, we've been building our portfolio for clients. And you know, probably 90% of the time we're like this meme we just saw that came out today, is enjoying it, you know, and doing it alone just for the joy of it. But that's why we're here, to show you that, you know, we're the product. And if you want to collaborate with us, or if you have any products that you would like us to demonstrate, you know, that we can actually make better with AI, feel free to hit us up after this. So, all right. So first slide here. So we're going to start off with showing you how we take a photo. In this case, this was a nice wedding at City Hall here in SF. And we basically replaced the background with something creative. So all this is just an edited photo. We adjusted the light levels and, you know, basically prepared it for the next step. So here we are taking it into Photoshop. And we basically asked Photoshop here to replace the background with a real simple prompt, futuristic, brutalist, romantic, walkway backlit. And, you know, it did an all right job, but we kind of left it at that, knowing that we were going to take it into Stable Diffusion to do the upscaling and make it way more detailed, because what we can do there is very specifically prompt and match the resolution of what the camera is, because our camera is 50 megapixels. So usually most image generators start off at just 1K. And then to get it up to the level of the camera, you have to do quite a few steps to get it at that detail. So here we go. This is where we take it into Comfy UI, which is the way we've been using Stable Diffusion for a while now. And it kind of looks complicated, but actually it just gives you the freedom to control everything a lot more, and then come up with creative ways of mixing different methods. But basically here we load the image in, and then we pick a model, because there's a whole bunch of models you can choose from that have different styles and different ways of, you know, drawing an image. And then once we find it, we cherry pick the best result, and we're like, okay, that's great. And as you can see here, the prompt was similar: a minimalist, intricate, futuristic background with a bride and groom, photoreal, dramatic light, you know, real basic prompt. You don't have to spend a lot of time on the prompt with Stable Diffusion, because you can really work on it a lot to get it to where you want. So here's what we ended up with, and you'll notice the bride and groom are different now. These aren't real. These are fake people, but that's fine, because since we're mixing it with photography, we don't have to worry about bad hands or, you know, any strange anatomy, because we're going to just put the real people over the top of it. But what we get with that is it figures out the reflections here, and it integrates it into the photo in a way that it kind of would be more difficult otherwise. And so this is a simple upscaling method that we've been using. It separates the image into tiles, and then basically the native resolution, like I said, 1K or 1024, it renders a Stable Diffusion generation using image to image. And really, like, this is the key to what makes Stable Diffusion so powerful, is image to image. It's the only one where you can set this value right here, which is the denoise. And depending on where you set this, it either makes the image exactly the same, or it completely hallucinates something new based on another prompt that you put in. And so, you know, once you find that perfect value of the denoise, then you can kind of say, okay, this is where it is. You know, you cherry pick your best result that doesn't change it too much and cause hallucinations, but it's also getting your desired prompt based on the original image. So now we got that, we got it cherry picked. We brought it into Photoshop here. And the next step here basically is to start integrating the photo with it. Now, a lot of this is kind of like simple Photoshop techniques, and we don't go into like all of the details here of all of the Photoshop stuff we've done, because a lot of that stuff you can like find on YouTube, and there's a creativity to it. You know, everybody has a different way of doing it. But in this case, it's pretty basic. Like, we took that initial photo, and since now Photoshop has built into it AI tools that can help you remove the background, it actually uses it to detect where the subject is. It's not 100% solution, so you end up having to tweak things and you know, make it better, but it can get you like 90% of the way there. And so then you notice they don't have legs, right? Well, that was intentional because what we can do, so here's the before and after. So what you'll see here is, like I said, the reflections are integrated, and the backlighting look is integrated, and all that helps into making it not look like it's photoshopped, like it's popping out and two images together, you know? It looks like it's all taken together, like one image. And you'll notice how when they didn't have their legs in the last image, now they have legs. Well, these legs are actually AI legs. But you just gently fade it with Photoshop to the point where it blends perfectly. And so, and again, like these contact shadows here by the feet, that's something that the AI figures it out all. You don't have to do much work, kind of handles that for you. So this is the second example. I had my birthday a couple weeks ago, and she went to a local bakery called the French Spot, right? French Spot, yeah. And we recommend it. It's really great.
It's not a sponsor.
Yeah, but definitely go. So you can see this delicious cake. This was her idea. Like, she has many ideas for stable diffusion images, and but basically she asked them to do chocolate notes and create that almost kind of like something she would have made. And so they pulled it off really well. But then we're like, oh well, what, you know, we don't have a studio or anything. We just put it on our back porch and took a photo of it on this nice table here. It's not the most interesting background, so we're like, okay, how can we spice this up? So we said, okay, let's make our cake sitting in Venice, Italy. And this method was a little bit different than the last one. So we used something called control net, which in this case has a bunch of different ways of controlling the image when you're going from one image to the next. This is called a depth map. And so the AI looks at the image and it says, this is the foreground where it's white, and this is the background where it's black. And that really locks the image down. And as you can see over here in these different examples, the cake almost looks identical to the real cake. It's very close. It kind of hallucinated its own details, but again, it doesn't matter because we're just going to put the real photo over the top. So we ended up picking this one because it looked kind of the best. It has the granite and it has the most realistic looking gondolas in the background in Venice. She would know because she's been there. I haven't. So comes the next phase. We bring it into Photoshop. We got our cherry picked result, but then we're like, what's this strange thing here? Oh, well, let's fix that. So Photoshop has a great new tool that uses generative AI that's basically, it's the removal tool, but it can kind of do it intelligently. And this has like been a game changer for this process. Before you had to use a healing brush and do a bunch of different techniques. But now you can kind of just say, fix it and paint over a spot. So this region here is what we painted over to kind of add some consistency to the table. And then the next step was to, kind of like the last photo, we blend the real picture, and we left out the entire bottom part because it actually looked pretty good. And it was easier to blend it in this way rather than trying to cut it so precisely. So it's just kind of like a soft fade. And then it didn't quite match the background so well. There was a lot of strange artifacts around the edge. So we just used that removal tool again to paint out all of the strange artifacts and make it blend into the image better. And so there's the result. I don't know if it's kind of hard to see, but here's before and after. If you look around the edge of the cake, there's like kind of little glowing aliasing artifacts that made it really easy for Photoshop. You just probably took like 5 minutes to paint over everything that looks strange. And then now it looks like it's sitting on a table in Venice. And you can see here the bottom part of the cake and all this. This is AI, but then it fades up into the real photo. And so, you know, this is kind of like what we would say is a pretty good demonstration for product photography, food photography. You can take your actual product with a photo and without a studio and just make the background whatever you want. And also very high resolution. Again, we're matching 50 megapixel here. Which is something, was it 8,600 pixels by like 6,500. So a lot more than what you get out of Midjourney or anything just by default. And then, so the last step here, the AI tends to make a really clean, smooth image. And you'll notice that the photo has this grainy noise. Well, we actually fake the noise on the AI image and add it back in so that it matches. And this is something built into Photoshop with the raw filter, and it's called grain. So it's designed to look like film grain. And generally you can match it to look pretty realistically. And that's, you know, you wouldn't notice it unless you're pixel peeping or if you print it very large. But we feel like it just kind of adds that extra little detail to make it look realistic. And there's the final result. So And here was another one we did, different angle. We wanted to make it look more like, food photography kind of stuff. And so this was actually done primarily, again, in Photoshop using their Firefly background replacement. But the cherries didn't look so great. The wood wasn't so awesome. So we took it back to Stable Diffusion, upscaled it, and then the cherries and everything tended to look way more realistic afterwards. So we kind of use them both together oftentimes, especially for something that's going to be sharp and in focus. Stable Diffusion can really add that detail back in. Okay, on to this final one for this section. Recently, local bar in the marina hired us for some photography of their special cocktails. It's called For the Record. Really cool place if you want to try it out. And so he didn't ask us to do any AI, but once again, we're like, okay, let's do one for him, just so we can build a portfolio and show them, kind of match their theme, which is like retro, vinyl records kind of theme that they've got going on. So first thing we did is we used Ideogram. And if you haven't heard of this, highly recommend it. If you've used Midjourney or DALL-E, Ideogram, I would say, is somewhere between those two. It has very good prompt coherence, meaning it can do complex prompts. It can do text and photography. It can do all sorts of things. And one of its strengths here is the magic prompt. So it actually uses ChatGPT to augment what you put in, which is right here, what we put in. And then it adds more details based on what it thinks you want. And most of the time it works out really well. And you could turn it off if you want to see what it comes out. But you can see it made a pretty decent photo here. It looks great. But once again, we're going to put the real photo over the top. So part of our upscaling workflow to get it up to the higher resolution is this program called Gigapixel AI by Topaz. And we've been using them for years because it's like a photographer's centric kind of upscaling tool. They also have denoisers and different tools for photography. But you can see it took this low resolution image and did a pretty good job at upscaling on its own. And then, so the next step is we bring that upscale into Photoshop. And you can see it changed the bottom of the glass and it made this record here. But we thought, oh, this background is a little busy, so let's change that out. So we used Adobe Firefly again in Photoshop. We're like, okay, that looks a little more aesthetically pleasing. Not quite there. Okay, that's what we were looking for, right? Just one more center that we highlighted here to say, okay, add some more lights. And then the next step is to add the real photo in. So that's blended in. But we used the bottom half with the AI glass here so that we didn't get that coaster and the table, because the table you would have been able to see it through the glass. So this just makes it so much easier to just use the AI glass at the bottom. And then there's the final result.
For the reflection, if there is a reflection in the eye, it's better to conserve the first part of the bottom, so you don't see nothing weird. You don't are going to see another reflection that can attract attention.
Yep. And this is an example of that we didn't use Stable Diffusion at all in this workflow. Didn't need it. Because oftentimes when the background's blurry, it makes it look weird anyway because it can't handle the blurriness. So I was like, Photoshop did fine here. So we thought that was fine. Added the film grain and that was done. And so, okay. So here's a new example. So we're talking about AI plus photography. And photography brings something to the table that we believe AI can never do, because sometimes you want to look at something that's actually real. No matter how good AI gets, it won't be real. You can't catch an actual moment to happen in real life. You might be able to replicate it, but this is the opposite. We're like, well, this is something that only we can do with AI. So we'll walk you through this workflow. So again, we started out with Ideogram here. And I don't know if you want to kind of come up with your idea of what you had here.
Yeah. The idea was a poster, but also an advertiser for a food, and that can combine something very strange, extravaganza, if you want. So I was looking for Dali or something.
Salvador Dali, the painter.
Yeah, the painter. Or I was looking for some Renaissance look. So I started with this idea. I put an easy prompt. I also put the prompt usually in ChatGPT, so can give me more details about the idea. I ask for background, for lights, and details. And then, of course, come ideogram with these 4 options.
Yep, and this was the best one we decided. It's almost perfect, except you'll notice the text ain't so good. There's some gibberish. So sometimes it nails the text first try. You don't have to do anything. But in this case, we cleaned it up in Photoshop. And so the next step here was similar to the last one where we took it into gigapixel, upscaled it. And it's already looking pretty good, right? I mean, in some ways it's done. But you can take it to the next level. So this is what we would call targeted in-painting. Basically, here's a cannoli, or cannolo, because it's just one. And you select it in Photoshop. You cut out a slice. You take it through image to image in Stable Diffusion, cherry pick the best result, and then there you go. As you can see, added a lot more detail. It's creamier.
Yeah, creamy.
It's very important. Had to be very creamy. And then we're like, okay, well, what about Dali here? It doesn't really look like Salvador Dali. And, this could look better, his feathers, his hat. So this was the first pass we did. You can see here, we selected the square. This is what we export and then take into Stable Diffusion. And then, boom, that's what it came up with. Of course, that was cherry-picked. Probably 10 different faces. Faces are a little harder. You got to work on it a little bit. But then we're like, well, it doesn't really look like Dali still. So we did one more, and that's what it came up with. We really prompted Salvador Dali that time. You can see he's got the funny mustache. Well, it's almost good, but we noticed that, well, first, actually, let me just show you how we masked his face. So there's the slice we took out. And then there's the blend layer, how it blended in with the below image. And then here, you'll notice his eyes changed. That was actually done in Photoshop because we thought that the Stable Diffusion eyes were a little scary. Didn't quite look right. And Photoshop nailed it. This was actually the latest version of it's Firefly version 3 now. And it does a really good job at this. As long as you don't have to do a whole image where it's like, thousands of pixels, it really gets the detail. So we're almost there. We thought, oh, these gloves looking a little rough, looking a little AI there. Didn't make much sense here. So there was one pass that we thought looked great for the glove. Intricate little laces there. Nailed it. And of course, there's the other glove. Got to do that one too. I think we actually had an argument. I'm like, oh, that's fine. She's like, no, do it. Make it better. And so, boom, better glove. And you'll notice the vase here also got an upgrade. See? And we're like, okay, we'll just blend that in because it looks better. Why not? And then it was like, well, what about the top of the vase? It looks a little broken. And so once again, back to using Adobe, it fixed it. And I think we did 6 generations here.
Yeah.
And this one we decided looked the best. So there we go. There's the final result. This is basically just what came out of ideogram. Was pretty good, could have worked, but there's always something you can do to make it better. And honestly, the more we look at the image, it's like, oh, I could have fixed the necklace. You can work on it for days and days if you want to make it perfect. But that looks definitely better than the original result. So it's kind of fun, You never know what's going to come up when you're doing this process. So now I think we're going to go ahead and just kind of go through a few different examples of some other portfolio stuff we've done. So she says, quote, I lose my mind for food. And she's got like 6,000 ideas of food photography that she's done. And this is purely AI stuff. I don't know, was this Stable Diffusion or?
Ideogram.
Oh yeah, ideogram first, upscale and Stable Diffusion with in-painting, similar to what we just showed you. This was actually real photography that we did for a client. She was selling Christmas ornaments, but then she's like, oh, I don't like the color. This was the table that it was photographed on. It was a wooden table. We're like, oh, no problem. Adobe can do that in a second now, So this is what we swapped it out with, this white granite, and it even came up with reflections. So it ended up, looking pretty real. Here's another one of our cute food ideas, this avocado toast man with bacon necktie, and that one we actually worked on quite a bit to get it to look realistic. And this one's actually quite interesting because this is Midjourney, the latest version, and it did great. Like if you looked at the output of Midjourney, it's like, okay, that's perfect, but we wanted to upscale it. And I don't know if you guys have heard of how many show of hands, who knows what a LoRa is? So a LoRa is like a modification in Stable Diffusion. It works on other types of models as well, but in the case of Stable Diffusion, it's like if you want to target something specifically, in this case, bread, she used a LoRa specifically for bread. So when we did the upscaling, she prompted the bread, and you can see like, you can zoom way in and it still looks real, you know? I think this is what, 6,000 pixel units?
Yes.
Something like that. So it's a lot more detailed than the original. And it just adds to that subtle detail that makes it look real. This was another, I don't know, you want to talk a bit about this?
Yeah, this is a concept food, or better is for a product, similar product with a different option. So basically, I did the first pass in audiogram, and then I completely redo the background with Firefly in Photoshop. And of course, I use Stable Diffusion again for the creamy and the pastry texture.
Yeah. So I think we're getting short on time, so we're going to go ahead and go back and just kind of go back to the slideshow here. We've got a loop out video that has some QR codes if you guys want to scan them. So we've got a few, some of them are for Instagram page. This is actually for our wedding page here. So if you know anyone getting married, or if you want to do family photography, doesn't have to have an AI photo, but we'll just throw one in there just for fun.